Okay, first I want to say hello to everyone and thanks for joining us today. We have a great webinar covering ransomware and Symantec's advanced threat protection for you today. Before we begin, there are a couple housekeeping items. Make sure your phones are muted. Use the chat box for any questions or comments and we will be happy to address them. We love participation. Sure, this is an expert technical talk, but it's a lot more fun and useful if we're all involved. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Sam Rollins. I handle marketing content here at NovaCoast, and I'll be your moderator. Today we have some special guests from Symantec joining us to give us some deep insight into Locky and ransomware and the incident at the Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital. We're also going to be walking you through exactly how to leverage your Symantec endpoint protection with ATP to improve your security posture. This is why Symantec is here with us, to show us the ins and outs of this awesome new tool. Let me start by telling you a little bit about NovaCoast and why we're here. We're one of Symantec's top partners in the business, which I'm sure you've heard before. What they like so much about us is that we can get any job done. We have creative engineers and blended expertise that makes us very versatile and innovative in our field, which sounds kind of braggy, but that's what we bring to the table and that's what sets us apart. We have 20 years of security experience and over 100 engineers and developers who are trained cybersecurity experts. You can see why Symantec and NovaCoast is such a match made in heaven. We can make sure your Symantec solutions are integrated with the rest of your environment and, more importantly, with your company and your employee policies. With us today is one of those nimble engineers. Jonathan Poon is a longtime NovaCoaster, longtime friend of Symantec. He's been able to help Symantec tremendously by taking on some of their biggest and most complicated customer problems hands-on. He's the guy hip deep in different networks all the time, juggling specific concerns and environments and ensuring security excellence, consulting from a holistic business standpoint. John followed the early news about ransomware and Locky, and he knew that it was a big issue that needed to be addressed, and he actually found a great article that turned out to be written by Karsten and David Clapp, directly addressing these issues. So we asked them to come and share this with some of our customers. So here we are today. That's a pretty good illustration of our partnership. And yeah, I really want to thank Karsten and David and Symantec for being such great partners. And now I'm going to go ahead and hand over the mic to them.
Thank you, NovaCoast. My name is Karsten Abada. I'm with Symantec, and joining me here is David Clapp. And today we're very happy to be speaking to you about how Symantec is helping its clients prepare for ransomware and prepare themselves against ransomware attacks. And going to go into the details is David Clapp.
Thank you, Karsten. Yes, today we're going to talk about a number of topics, focusing primarily on Symantec Advanced Threat Protection versus Locky. And we can see we have a bit of a wrestling theme here. We have Symantec on the top, coming down on Locky. But in our agenda, we're going to be talking about Hollywood Presbyterian Medical Center, their analysis of when they got Locky and what that looked like, and what Locky itself actually looks like. Then we'll be moving over into looking in detail more at Symantec Advanced Threat Protection and how it's composed and why we built it. And then moving forward, we'll take a look at some demos of Symantec's Advanced Threat Protection versus Locky, and then we'll move on to some HP architecture. So in summary of the Hollywood Presbyterian Medical Center's incident with Locky, the crypto ransomware, they discovered that on February 5th that they noticed that they had issues accessing their computers, and it's because the Locky crypto ransomware had encrypted all their computers, or most of their computers. And to remediate the situation, which they finally did on February 15th, they ended up paying the hackers that created Locky $17,000 worth of Bitcoins. Originally it was said that they had spent $3.4 million, but that was an erroneous error by the media. Nonetheless, it still stirred a lot of people the wrong way. So it tells us a couple different things. While the staff detected Locky on February 5th, files were already encrypted. The damage has already been done. And how come they didn't detect it, right? Why didn't they detect it before the damage was done, or just before, or only after a couple computers? And according to the Ponemon Institute, it takes 98 days on the average to detect a piece of malware that's doing damage or taking information from your environment. After detection, though, it took them 10 days to think about it, to deal with it, to bring their experts in, and they just couldn't come to any agreement on what to do technically, remediate it, so they didn't remediate it. They ended up actually paying to get it remediated to the hackers that created it. And so that tells us they had a lack of capability in detection and a lack of capability in remediation. So how does Locky work? It's an interesting crypto ransomware that was generated. So a user opens an attachment containing a malicious macro. It could be from aggressive spam campaigns and then leads them to compromise legitimate websites or the websites themselves. And it mimics really fake invoices in these emails, paythisnow.doc, for example. And of course, you know, they're going to click on it. They'll get duped and click on it. And going forward, they'll actually, the main Locky executable is launched once they click on that macro document. And an additional downloaded payload comes down to the machine, is executed. In this case, ladyby.exe is executed on the machine. And files are encrypted with AES encryption and a .locky extension. And we can see it looks for all these different great file types that we love, content that we actually find is valuable, and it encrypts those so we no longer have access to them and we have to pay for them. It also does something really great, for the hackers at least, not for us. It actually looks at the shadow volume copies in Windows. It knows you can go back and revert back to a prior version of a file, but it uses a valid Microsoft Windows VSS admin.exe tool, and it deletes all the shadow copies quietly. So your life preserver is basically ripped from you, and your thinking and all your files are getting encrypted. And then, of course, to let you know that they did it, you get a nice, lovely wallpaper change with instructions on how to pay them and tell you what happened. And it's semantic. We see this as trojan.cryptolocker.af and a couple different other formats depending on which of your detection technologies actually figures out what it is. So there's a lot of indicators of compromise going on here, whether it's coming in through the web, whether it's coming in through email. It's all converging down, whether it's a file, whether it's a web email, onto a computer. And tracking where all these things are coming at can be very disconcerting task to do. And so it's kind of like being in a 3-on-1 handicap in wrestling, like I like to say. You could have things coming in on the email, the endpoint, and the network. And ultimately, this makes us mad like the Hulk, and we wouldn't like to like the Hulk when he gets angry, and we don't like to be angry. But luckily, there's semantic advanced threat protection to save us, and we'll talk about that. So prevention alone isn't enough. We start out with our good antivirus and anti-malware tools just to prevent, but it's not enough. Of course, we need to identify where the important data is. We need to prevent. We need to stop incoming attacks. But to go farther, we need to be able to detect and find incursions, whether it's at the endpoint, whether it's at the email, or whether it's through the network. We also need to be able to respond and contain and remediate the problems very quickly. We can't let this thing spread, otherwise all our computers, like in Hollywood Presbyterian, will be encrypted, and we won't be able to access their files and have to pay. And of course, we want to recover. We want to get those machines healthy again, no crypto ransomware on that, no malware in general, and make sure that they're virus-free, and restore operations and get down to business. So detection has become very difficult, unfortunately. While we can prevent, we want to detect. We want to detect across the endpoint, the networks, and the email. And largely, our products are not interconnected to detect across all those different products. And also, we can see that threats can evade traditional sandboxing techniques. With endpoints, we want to block known malware and suspicious file behavior. With the networks, we want to know about bad content going across the networks or suspicious network behavior. And with the emails, we want to block any malicious URL links that are in there to bad websites, or malicious attachments need to be blocked in terms of bad payloads. So all this stuff, to be able to go around and detect all this, can be very difficult to detect and clean up those attacks. The analyst actually has to go and contact each of the end users. They have to go and look at different systems to set up different policies to go ahead and prevent and remediate an advanced persistent threat, which is what ATP from Symantec prevents. And so it's very time consuming in the traditional model. So when we look at visibility intelligence, traditional intelligence, block a network connection, detect a virus, block malicious email, but rich intelligence allows us to do some special things like all network connections from every machine get blocked. We can look at file hashes to block out different files on different endpoints. And we can also categorize malware and increase our detection methods and look at URL data. And that's great, but one of the key things that our customers at Symantec told us they wanted to see, and what they really wanted to get out of a product that would prevent against advanced persistent threats, they wanted Symantec Advanced Threat Protection to uncover, prioritize, remediate, and leverage. Those are the 4 things that they wanted to have happen. They wanted to have that happen across the endpoints, across the networks, and across the email. So let's take a look at why Symantec Advanced Threat Protection beats Locky, the crypto ransomware. Reason number 1, or round number 1, if we're looking at it in terms of wrestling, is the insight technology, our wisdom of crowds. We have a reputation-based system that is constantly being updated. We have tons of consumer users, tons of business users, and they're telling us what the known good files are out there so we can weed out what the bad files are. Files that we haven't seen very often, files that have historical reputation that isn't good, historical prevalence that isn't very good. We also track when we first saw a file, well, a good file or a bad file, and then we calculate the current reputation and the current prevalence of that file. And this allows us to take on a 0-day, which Locky was when it first hit Hollywood Presbyterian. And this technology is available in all the Symantec products that we create. So let's take a little look at a little demo here that we're going to do. I'm going to pull that up right now. So here we're going to click on a variant of Locky. We're going to execute it on a desktop. And of course, everybody clicks through this Windows warning. But we have the download insight warning. That pops up and it says, hey, you know what? ws.reputation.1 is what we call it in our signature. We say it's unproven file. Very few users have seen it, and we've known about it for a while, but this can be a problem, right? So we're letting the end user know that we're stopping this Locky variant.exe from executing and encrypting all the files because that can be a big problem. All right, now we're going to switch over and take a look at a couple more things. When we execute it again, we can see that our detection technology takes a look at that it's a Trojan.crypto CryptoLocker type of malware, and basically it's analyzing it when we clicked on it, a different variant of it, and it was cleaned and deleted. We recognize it as a virus, and we stopped it dead on. And so with our detection technologies like Insight, it allows us really to get rid of 0-day malware that really hasn't been out very long. Therefore, we catch it for that very fact. The reputation is not very good, and so forth. We can see that, indeed, we call it Trojan.cryptolocker.af, categorize it as malware. We were seeing it at the file hash from it, so we go track it down elsewhere. The evolution is that we catch it in a 0-day, then we start to fine-tune and we catch it, and we give it a more formal name, like Trojan.cryptolocker.n, and then we go to .af as our different detection technologies find this file and become more aware of this file. We start to write signatures and so forth, and that's kind of the evolution. In our Advanced Threat Protection console, we can see that the Locky variant here is shown as we investigate this. And we can drill down into this particular event in our Advanced Threat Protection console, and we can take a look at, yep, there's the Locky variant.exe that we clicked on. It's bad. We actually investigate it a little further. We categorize it as malware, do a lot of good things against it, and we can see the different events that were triggered related to the other endpoints executing this crypto malware, Locky. And we can see that it had different file names, but it's still the same malware, crypto ransomware that we have over and over again. And we can observe its file behaviors on how it acts against an endpoint. And it's all very exciting that we see all these great things in the Advanced Threat Protection. We can see across the endpoint, across the email, and so forth. All right, we're going to go back to the demo. So another reason why we're able to detect Locky and beat it down in round 2 here, or reason 2, is our heuristics. We call this suspicious.cloud.2. It's a detection technology designed to detect entirely new malware threats. We look at the behaviors of files and the way they execute, what good programs should do, and what bad programs try to do. And we have a long legacy in looking at files and their behaviors, and we can detect if they want to do things to Windows that is not a good thing to do, no matter if you're good, bad, or indifferent. And so it's a very highly sensitive detection technology, and we have this technology called heuristics, or sonar, which we like to call it, in all our Symantec products. We're going to take a look at another demo here of reason 2, why we catch Locky. All right, so here we're going to go and take a look at executing another piece of malware, Locky again. This time Sonar catches it from our detection technology. Now Sonar caught Locky trying to do some things that a good program shouldn't do, bad behaviors that we don't normally see with a legit application. All right, so when we take a look at how we catch Locky with heuristics, we have great online help that tells you why we think that our heuristics put in details about the bad behavior of an application and why we think those are bad behaviors. You can read it online. Our sonar detection technology, as you can see, right with this pop-up here, if we investigate our detection of Locky, it says sonar.tcp gen 1. And we can see that we're grabbing the file hash from it, and we can see the different sonar risk levels and our confidence of what we think is bad. And of course, we can see the files that were involved in file behavior and what it was trying to do. So again, the file was detected in this case because our sonar heuristic technology did catch it. Our risk level was high. Our confidence that this was a bad acting file, bad behavior file, was very high. And we also saw this in combination with our insight technology, and that it was a very untrustworthy file to begin with, and have a different breakdown of our historical prevalence and when it was first seen and so forth from insight, combined with the behavior from Sonar, our heuristic technology. Stop this, and we'll go back to the slide. All right. So the third round, or third reason why Symantec ATP is able to beat Locky is through our ATP correlation and URL reputation. When Symantec endpoint has been informed via SEP, our Symantec Endpoint Protection, and leveraging our existing investment that you might have, comes in and correlates into our SEP ATP solution. And then we have the network ATP network looking at traffic that's going on between that endpoint and the internet, and we're correlating those security events because they're going to be picked up as security events, and those roll into a broader or larger security incident if it's seeing a trend or a pattern, or like we like to say, is an advanced persistent threat coming into the endpoint from the network, potentially from an email. And just by looking at the event, you can see that there's download activity at the endpoint. You can see the file, you can see the email, and pull that story together. And this capability is very unique to the Symantec ATP solution, but yet leveraging our investment in things like Symantec Endpoint Protection. Let's check out a demo of that. So here is the Advanced Threat Protection console. And here we see the event activities that are going across the network, the endpoint, and the email. And we can go to points in time and look at the different types of activities. In a real production environment, we'll see this graph probably very busy, too busy, in the fact that we don't have that many things going on, but there'll be a lot going on. Here we clicked on the email portion of ATP, and we're seeing different emails from different sources and different places and different senders going to our recipients. And those are emails that are suspicious and flagged as bad. We'll continue on here. We'll look at endpoint traffic, our AP network, and we can see that different traffic has been going out, carrying malicious payloads like Locky and different files that it renames out to, and other types of malware. And our network scan capability AP is catching that and correlating that to our ATP console. A little wider view of our ATP console, we can see here our network detection events, and we're able to see a couple different detection technologies. We have Vantage. It's our IPS detection technology, why we're catching things on the network. But we have other things like our Insight reputation. Certain IPs have bad reputation out there. We're definitely catching anything that's coming from there to our endpoints across our network. And our AV engine is looking at file payloads going across the network. And if it knows that they're bad files, it's definitely going to catch those as well. So let's dig down into an incident. We're going to go to our incident manager. We click on our display there. It'll pull out so you can get the full name. Here we can see that we have an incident and we have a description going on. We're going to dig down a little bit further. In our incident, we have a great graphical display, interactive, and we can see the endpoint at the center. And all around the endpoint at the center, we can see things coming in that are bad. The email, they're directing out to the web. We can see files coming directly onto the endpoint. More files as the endpoint tries to go to the web, a bad website, and get a bad file, like Locky. We can also see, again, another reach out to the web and another bad file called 7.exe coming down to the endpoint. All these events are correlated based on the types of malware that they are and the places that they're coming from. And we can pull all that together and say, this is a security incident. It is no longer just a single security event. It is a security incident, and it's coming across the web, across the email, and across bad files down to the endpoint to give it to be compromised. This is how advanced persistent threats work. It's levels coming at angles. But luckily, from ATP console, we can add this to the blacklist. We can add files or emails to the whitelist. We can quarantine, and we can, of course, delete malicious files that end up on the endpoint. And this is actually a combination of 24 or 32 events that we're seeing here. 32 events made this security incident that we can see in our ATP console. And we can see all sorts of different things going on here. We're saying that this endpoint is definitely under attack. All sorts of malicious things are happening against it, from bad malicious traffic to bad emails to bad files, bad website communications. And so the fourth and final reason around here on ATP versus Locky, why we were able to defeat Locky, is because of our Cynic detonation capability. Ransomware will come in. We don't know what the file is going to do, if it's bad, if it's good, and inspecting that file is a lot of the work. And luckily, our Cynic technology is able to take that file payload, whether it's an email attachment, something someone's downloading from a website, or something that is coming onto the endpoint in some other way. And we're able to take that and submit that to our cloud service. We don't detonate malware in our customer's environment. We detonate that in our cloud, and we can do that detonation on bare metal hardware or virtualized hardware. And we're able to basically detonate the file even if that malware is very intelligent and wants to detect that we're detecting it, right? So we can do it on bare metal and put that thing to bed. So when we take a look at a file we've detonated, we look at a couple different things. We look at, Cynic looks at a suspicious file behavior. It knows different things that are suspicious or malicious or just informational that the file is doing that isn't necessarily bad, but it looks at every single little thing that executable from that malware is trying to do. In the case of Locky, it was 221 actions, hiding files, uploading PHP code. It does a whole bunch of things, and we're able to break that down and see that in our Advanced Threat Protection Console and classify its behavior based on Cymac's 25 years of experience looking at known good files versus the bad files. And this technology and capability of Cynic is unique to ATP. So demo number 4, we're going to take a look at how Cynic detonation works. All right, so we're going to start off with our events part of the ATP console, and those are spread out. We're going to dig down into some of those events so we can look for an event that triggered a submit to Cynic and a detonation, right? So we're going to look and drill down to see this particular bad website that was communicating different bad payloads that had Locky in it, and we can see that there's a number of them. We're going to click on one of them, and we're going to take a look at that particular file payload in detail. In this case, nsmail.tmp. Malware verdict from Cynic is that it's malware. So that's a malware verdict from Cynic, and then we can see that it said it was bad. We're going to take a look why. We're going to scroll down through this event on this file, and we're going to see why. And there's a lot of great information to build our case. And here we can see Cynic observed file registry and system changes. We can see it checked for the presence of a debugger. It went ahead and copied a process called svchost.exe, which is not very good, and that was a malicious activity. We can sort this activity and filter it a couple different ways. And we can see that it also went ahead and uploaded a file to a specific IP address, this main.php. It sent a file to that to get handled. Who knows what it was sending in that payload, but we can investigate that further if we want to. And it was doing a disk drive open for direct access because, as we all know, Locky likes to encrypt and lock up our files, and that's what it was doing. And we can see again and again that we're looking at over the 221 actions of Locky. We're looking at some of them now. If we open our filter to all the actions, we can see that it does a whole host of things. And we're going to scroll through some of these. Creating the svc host.process, deleting an executable, going ahead and sleeping for a while so it chills out. A lot of malwares like to do that to fake us out. Creating a ton of registry keys and modifying them, all scary things you don't want happening to Windows ever by a malicious program especially. It's creating its own processes, it's creating different windows, and of course manipulating that registry so ultimately that we're going to have that desktop wallpaper that it wants us to have telling us all our files have been encrypted. And this is what our Cynic observation tells us. It goes deep in a blow-by-blow behavior of watching how the malware executes. So overall, what we like to say at Symantec is this is next generation Symantec now. And what we're able to do with our advanced threat protection is if you're using our ATP endpoint and our ATP network appliance for scanning, that's connecting into our Symantec Cloud. In our Symantec Cloud, we have our advanced threat protection email and our advanced threat protection web. And this is a web proxy and email gateway in the cloud, and that allows us to manage that and take advantage of the fact that that's in the cloud and doing, of course, detonation with Cynic in the cloud. If you look at our other products, like our DLP product, that is using our Symantec email and web security.cloud services as well to leverage and take a look at, for example, emails that might be either on-premise systems or Office 365 systems that have to process email in and out. We can scan and check those and then submit those results to our ATP platform. Additionally, you could decide that you want to go with Symantec email and web security.cloud and get our email safeguard and our web safeguard, and also do policy-based encryption in the cloud for your email as well. So a lot of these things are converging on the cloud. The cloud is where we have the muscle to think. The cloud is where we have the muscle to detonate and keep everybody safe and do the intelligence. Symantec has a deep focus on the endpoint. We've got DLP on the endpoint. We have endpoint encryption, a whole disk encryption. We have ATP endpoint, which I mentioned. We have data center security for clients on the endpoint. We have, of course, our endpoint protection, which is part of ATP. We have a unified endpoint protection in the cloud as well. And, of course, we have our client management suite managing the endpoints and doing management. All right, so that was ATP, a little bit of breakdown there and talking about Hollywood Presbyterian, going on down into some demos and talking a little bit more about next generation Symantec. But moving forward here into our next presentation is going to be Jonathan Poon from NovaCoast, Director of Security, and he's going to talk about the Advanced Threat Protection Architecture.
Thanks, David. So I'm going to cover a little bit about the architecture and actually what makes up Symantec ATP. So ATP is three components. There's ATP for network, endpoints, and email, and each one takes care of a different vector. So in this diagram, I've gone ahead and illustrated the Symantec endpoint manager in the bottom right there, the endpoint clients on the bottom left, and then the typical sort of network for external email from security.cloud. So the first component of ATP is the ATP endpoint and manager. That is an appliance that interfaces with your SET manager in order to pull log information, as well as act as a shared insight cache for your clients. The ATP network component gives us insight into the network and works off of a span or a tap off of your core switches. And this information is correlated with a new technology called Semantic Synapse, which is a correlation engine that ties the data being fed from the different ATP components together. Cynic is another new technology and is what ATP utilizes in order to detonate executables, Word documents, PDFs, and other files in a sandbox environment. Now, one interesting piece about Cynic is it doesn't just do this in a virtual sandbox, but some advanced malware is actually crafted to become VM aware. And so it will actually execute the payloads in a physical environment as well and document the actions taken as we saw in the previous demo to determine what exactly a particular piece of malware is doing. If you're running ATP for email or you're using Semantic Security.cloud, ATP for email is the component that actually looks at one of the most common entry points for malware, which is email. And it plugs directly into Security.cloud and is simply a license enablement component to ATP. So between the three, we get correlation through Synapse for all the ATP components in order to assess what malware is doing and ultimately provide the remediation that we saw earlier through and leveraging the Semantic Endpoint Protection clients. One last thing there, because this integrates tightly with SEP, it utilizes capabilities of the existing SEP agent, so there's no additional agents to deploy on your endpoint. There are some configurations that need to be tweaked on SEP. NovaCoast happy to do a free assessment on your SEP environment to take a look at some of those settings, just to do a quick readiness assessment of SEP to make sure you guys are actually ready. So if you're thinking about taking advantage and leveraging the ATP capabilities, that's something that for the participants on the webinar today, we'll go ahead and throw that in as a free assessment for you guys. So to wrap it up, hopefully that gives you a good overview of ATP. Here, we at NovaCoast believe in helping our customers leverage powerful tools like ATP to help you build effective security strategies.
Okay. Well, I want to thank Karsten, David, and John for their insight and their time. I also want to thank everybody for joining our webinar. I hope it was useful for everybody. As always, you can reach out to us with questions or concerns at any time, and we hope to see you again at one of our webinars in the future. Thanks.